What's going up? What's going up? What's going on, guys? It's your boy DP, and I got one of my good dear friends from a long time ago, Lita Lewis, on today's podcast. What's going on, Lita?
Hey, first and foremost, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. But before we get going, this podcast is brought to you guys by the Heat Challenge. The Heat Challenge is a 6-week fitness transformation challenge built to help you develop lasting nutrition and exercise habits. Over the course of 6 weeks, 5 winners with the most significant transformation will be paid $5,000 each. That's totaling $25,000 in total. You can sign up today by going to www.HEATXtreme.com to reserve your spot. Next challenge starts this Monday, September 21st. But now it is time to get to this podcast with my favorite, Lita Lewis. So you had some. Oh, go ahead. You about to say something?
No, I was just gonna say, when you speak about the Heat Extreme Challenge, if it has anything to do with your the workouts that we've done together, online or on IG Live, I'm telling y'all, for anyone listening, it is a real challenge. I've told you before. I love that rhythmic and movement that you lead, and so you torching calories the entire time. It hurts.
Oh,
in the best way possible. It hurts. So I love hearing about
pain.
it. It's the good pain, the real good pain.
So before we get going in anything, something just happened to you recently that was. You broadcasted it on your social media platform, and I thought it was a great proposal. I've seen the pictures.
I was like, where?
I
was like, where are you going with this?
So talk to us. How did this happen? How long have you guys been together? Give us the details.
Yeah. Well, one, I appreciate you mentioning that. It was a really special moment. So my now fiance, Guy Fernandez, proposed. It was actually on Father's Day. And I guess long story short, I was not expecting it, although we've been together now a good, I never know how to answer, 4 years, and have kind of fast track life. So in 4 years, we're obviously very committed to one another. He has primary custody of his 4 amazing boys. So, with us living together, we've purchased a home together. We have primary custody of his 4 kids. We've done a whole lot in a short period of time. And, being the non-traditionalist as I am, we discussed marriage or this idea of a formal union. And I told him, I'm not the type of woman that needs to rush into these types of things. I said that, the committed relationship, it means more to me than a piece of paper, so to speak. So in saying that, nothing was really expected, although, one would assume that, we pretty much are already married. Some people thought that we were already. So the actual proposal was done, obviously in secret. I was not expecting it at all. His whole family were pretty much in on it. We had flown to Dallas, where his kids were visiting his parents, to spend Father's Day with the kids, which makes all the sense in the world. And what turned into our full family photo shoot, because Guy is one of 6 children, and his parents, never really get to see all 6 kids in one spot. They decided to plan a big family photo shoot. And so that happened in a really beautiful part of Texas. And Guy and the kids, myself and the kids, we all had our photos right at the very end together. And then he basically popped the question with the kids' help, and it was done in a very beautiful way. And it goes down as one of the most memorable experiences of my life. It was really sweet. It was really sweet.
Yeah, I thought it was really dope how he how he did it, because it and I guess for me, because I am a father, I like the approach that he did, and it was, will you marry us?
Yeah,
And
marry us. Exactly. I
and I
honestly couldn't have asked for it to be done any other way to make it perfect. It was awesome. The kids are great, so it was awesome.
yeah, so big a lot of respect goes out to you because it's it's different.
Mm.
Um, being a stepmother or I forget the term that people use nowadays,
Bonus
but bonus mother. And not just of one kid, of four kids, and
Mm.
still being able to balance, what you do, your life, your fitness, your apparel, your influence presence, like, and still be able to be, a bonus mother and a fiance. That's a lot of weight on your shoulders. So, like, how do for a regular day in life, what does that look like for you? Because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of um, people listening with kids, just
Sure.
wondering like, how does she do it? Because I've had a lot of people, and it's funny because, and this I'll get to this later on, but I've had a lot of clients, and they're like, "Yo," they'll send me a picture, or they'll come up to me like, "I want to look like her," and it's you, and it's like, "Oh, that's my
It
girl
still
Lita,"
blows my mind. It still blows my mind.
Yeah. And it's like people want to know, like, how does she do it? And
Mm.
that's the question. How do you do it?
Yeah, that's well, first in addressing kind of being a bonus mom or taking on the responsibilities of being in the position that I am. I've said this many times before, whether or not I'm talking to my girlfriends or being interviewed or asked questions regarding being in that step parent role or bonus parent, as we like to call it. I've always said, when I first started dating Guy and taking him seriously, it occurred to me that it's impossible to love a person that has children without recognizing that you have to love the children as equally.
Right,
Like, to me, I recognize that if I'm going to look at this person and see this person in my future, love this person, it isn't love if I can't extend myself to loving the very human beings that he loves most in the world, right?
right,
So from a really early part in our relationship, I took that in and I sat with it for a minute. And the question was, do I have the capacity to love this person and the fleet that he comes with,
right, right, right,
and I recognize in certain moments and in prayer and in meditation that, like, I feel like I've been put on this earth to love and to share and all these great things that I think, the human experience is all about. And so I remember kind of committing to that. Like, I love this man and I love who he loves, period. And so everything else that comes after that and that commitment that you make to yourself, not to your person or not even to the kids directly, but to yourself, and leaning in on the trust that you have to yourself that you're capable of doing something first and foremost was the first step for me. Then, everything else that falls into play when you do life with somebody that has a lot of responsibilities, that is, emotionally, financially, spiritually connected to raising, four young Black men, especially in this country. Everything else became easy. It's like, I'm going to support him as best as I can. I'm going to support the kids and show up for the kids as best as I can. And that becomes, I think, a responsibility that was kind of given to me from God. It's like, us meeting the way we have, our union, has been such a blessing to my life. And so everything that comes with doing life with him, to me, is an opportunity to grow, and to get better and to fulfill what is, I believe, part of my God-given purpose on this earth. Now, I will say, because that always sounds kind of like, oh, that sounds amazing. Truth is, it's really tough. It's really tough.
yeah,
People say you make it sound so like, oh my gosh, that sounds like, but I mean, the truth is it's really, really difficult. And for women that are listening, that are mothers, that may be single parents, that do struggle with balance regarding home life, keeping a spouse happy, keeping children happy and well balanced, as well as, pursue a career, pursue entrepreneurship. Like, trust me when I say it's not easy. There's been times where I've broken down in tears, sometimes privately. Sometimes I have to gather my thoughts and refuel myself with the courage it takes to be able to show up for so many people. As you know, this idea for me is like not wanting to disappoint Guy, not wanting to disappoint the kids, but still be able to give as much time and energy to growing my business and doing what I love, you know, as well. So it is tough. I say all this fluffy stuff that is very true and dear to my heart. But at the same time, I will say it is really difficult to find that balance. And that's a constant struggle. I think that I probably will have, for my entire life. It is what it is. Like any parent, balance is really tough to do, especially when you have come from being a very single, independent person, now doing life with a man, or a woman, depending on your situation, with 4 children.
Right. And like I said, that's definitely to take one on is going to definitely be difficult, but to take 4 on, I can only imagine, I know what it is just with my son, and now with my son and daughter, it's like 2 more. Whew.
Right.
And these are mine, you know what I'm saying? So it's a lot. And, I always, explain to people that are out there, especially in the fitness world, being a parent, trying to find that work-life balance, and just trying to find the time for ourselves. It's not easy. It takes some type of sacrifice, and some type of discipline in a sense, because we always tend to want to do for everybody else.
Exactly.
And not really take the time out for ourselves. But we have to remember that, if we're not sane, if we're not together, and if we don't have our head on right, it's going to be extremely hard to take care of everybody else, So, for all our viewers out there, especially coming from 2 influencers in the fitness world who have kids, and are trying to balance, our work and our family lives, it is hard. It's extremely hard. And there's a lot of sacrifices that take place, but it can be done.
It can be done. Absolutely.
That's the biggest thing.
And you definitely touched on that too, DP. I think, one, it's really tough. It's really difficult. And then those listening were like, yeah, I can only imagine. But how then do you stay above the water, so to speak? And then you touched on it by saying there's sacrifice, and that, if we don't fuel ourselves or take care of ourselves, there's no way we can show up for others that we love and care about. So it is really important, even when it is difficult, to step away or focus really on what makes you tick, what makes you feel whole, so you can show up as your best self for your work, for your family, for others, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to, get a little insight of, your daily routine, and, just give some feedback for the listeners out there. Outside of that, what led you into the fitness realm? What got you started?
Yeah, what got me started was severe depression. I mean, that's basically what it was. For anything to happen that, is somewhat extreme, or if you make a really sharp pivot in another direction. And I say that because I was very much a very corporate driven girl living in New York City. That something has happened, whether it's super amazing or super bad, something that is followed by a drastic, sharp pivot in your life. There's a crossroads there. Like, what happened? And for me, sadly, I was in a really unhealthy relationship. I had lost a sense of self-identity. I didn't necessarily know why I was working so ridiculously hard and for crazy hours in this corporate role. I had no purpose. I was just, and I tell people this all the time, I just felt like I was in the Matrix. I was just marching to that beat, hitting that subway, going to work, coming home. I just lost myself. And so I fell into this kind of really deep depression. At the time, I was super in denial about it. Like, I didn't recognize how bad it was until I had dropped almost 30 pounds. Um, I would cry myself to sleep almost every night. I had zero appetite. And then I remember just thinking I was so embarrassed to tell my family about the truth because, and my family being all the way in Sydney, Australia, I was like living in such denial, like telling my friends I was fine. I can't come out because I have work to do. I'm staying. Everything was an excuse to actually really face what was really happening to me. But I kind of hit rock bottom when I kind of caught sight of myself in the reflection of my mirror, my bathroom mirror. And when you're depressed, you avoid staring at yourself. You don't look healthy. You look like shit. And I remember just one morning waking up for work and then getting ready. I was like going to brush my teeth or something where I remember just looking at myself in the reflection of my cabinet bathroom. And I remember just having this complete meltdown. Like I was like, holy smokes. And everything was really heavy on my shoulders. I was definitely fighting back some really dark thoughts. And I think the denial and pretending that everything was okay, I just hit rock bottom. And I said to myself, either I tell my family and I go home because I cannot fix myself because this has now been like month 9. Like after dealing with it and the breakup and the job, I was like almost like 6-9 months in. And I said, if I'm not going to figure this out on my own, I got to go home. But then I was like, that's embarrassing. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to, crawl back home and say somebody broke my heart and it came to this, right? That's not who I am. So I was like, okay, well, I need to get back to something that makes me feel good. Like what makes me feel good? And the only thing I remember, having grown up as an athlete is that I just need to move my body. That's all I need to do. So sure enough, I walked into the gym. I started working out. And then as you know, I know, when you work out, endorphins are released. Even if you had no appetite, you are bound to work up an appetite. And I became that person that go in the gym, spend 2-3 hours, sometimes 4 hours in the gym, would leave hungry. And I said to myself, well, if I want to come back and do the same thing tomorrow, which I knew like that is what I wanted, I needed to eat right. So I couldn't eat like crap. I needed to eat right. So then I started eating right and making sure my nutrition was on point to make sure that my body was recovering correctly. And then I would go back into the gym the next night, do the same thing. And it became almost like an addiction. I found the gym. It made me feel good. It made my body change. And that's where everything started for me. I knew that fitness was the resource that I leaned in towards in order to make me stop feeling so shitty. And that's where things changed, basically. I mean, then like sky's the limit, right?
Exactly.
Find fitness. And like, I know and I know because I speak to you like as a peer. We're in the same realm as far as health and fitness is concerned, inspiring and motivating people. I think a lot of us in hearing stories have heard and people listening have heard like, fitness saved my life. And I always say it sounds cliche, but for many people, because I know I'm one of them, like it really did, and it becomes much more than fitness. It becomes much more than this idea of putting in your workouts. Fitness gives you the tools and the confidence to realize that with effort and purpose, you can change all aspects of your life. So even though I was just going into the gym working out on a consistent basis, I recognize if I do anything consistently, I can change my mood. I know if I start eating correctly and fueling my body with proper nutrition, and met with regular exercise, I can transform my body. I can transform my confidence. And then you start getting this sense, you get a feeling of being superhero like if I really commit to this and give it consistency, determination, be resilient, all these things that I'm gaining while being in the gym or simply moving, fitness, I can really change the course of my future. And that's what I lean towards when I say fitness changed my life. It wasn't because I was squatting 315 like a boss. It was because fitness gave me that, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's cool, but that's not what impresses me the most. What impresses me the most about fitness is what it can do to your entire life, not what it can do to your physical body. Yeah.
And I try to explain that to people all the time. And I explain that to them through the Heat Challenge. And I always let them know, like, it's so much more than just a meal plan and workouts. The information that we provide you guys with, the principles that we provide you guys with, and teach you guys can align in life in so many different ways. And I'm glad that you spoke on depression because that stuff is real. Depression is real, and it's a disease that a lot of people can't shake. And I always try to let them know, like, yo, if you look into just working out and releasing those endorphins, like you'll feel so much better. Not saying that depression will just automatically go away, but if you consistently do this, you'll start seeing that you start feeling better. And then that feel starts going to the point where you start looking better and your confidence starts going back up. And then again, excuse me for saying this, you start realizing who the fuck you are,
Yeah.
and gaining your confidence back. And, it's important to pour into yourself, which, we were talking about earlier, and set some time aside for yourself because depression is real. It is a horrible disease. And if you don't find some type of way to pour into yourself, it can start to take over. And these are certain things that you guys can do to, to avoid that kind of stuff. So I'm glad that you touched on that because that's so crucial for people to hear. Because a lot of people are thinking like, oh man, it's probably, they're the only one that feels like that, or they're the only one that's been like that. And so I really do appreciate your transparency on that and just giving that feedback for our listeners.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Some of the other things I want, a lot of people want to know, and this can kind of go towards the people who are looking to you to, jump into the field of fitness. But how did you ever start gaining traction on your social media account? Like, what was it that you're like, you know what? I need to keep putting this type of content out there because people are really gravitating to it.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, we're in fitness. It becomes so much part of our life. And as you know, we call it a lifestyle that, social media comes around, and I'm talking like 6-7 years ago, I think I joined Instagram. I'm not too sure, but, we're just sharing because we're sharing. We're all still pretty new to the idea of social content and it being at least intentional. I was just sharing.
Right.
And at the time, my life was very much about being pretty much a gym rat, and then eating right. And then in order to heal myself mentally and emotionally and spiritually, because remember the gym and what I did in the gym was transforming my physical body. But I still recognize even after the gym, and even in transforming my body and gaining my weight back, I still recognize I was still crying myself to sleep every other night. I was still fighting depression. So I realized we cannot define optimum health by just looking ourselves in the mirror and seeing a healthy, strong body. That real health also encompasses the idea of spiritual health, mental health, and emotional health. And so for me, I was also sharing posts on, quotes that came my way, or what I was reading in books that really spoke to me, that really helped encourage me be more resilient in my efforts. I was leaning into prayer more. I was meditating. I was new to meditation, but like sitting still for 5 minutes and really kind of like honing in what is your inner strength was something that I was really trying to exercise at that time. And things that I was sharing at that time were really geared towards this idea of like spiritual growth and happiness. And then, I started taking some time off my job and traveling. And I think the traveling aspect helped me tremendously because I found that, when you step away, from what is your norm and you're exposed to different cultures and experiences around the world, some which are much less unfortunate than your own circumstances, you recognize like excuse me, I'm not sure if I can cuss here. Like,
you're fine.
Yeah, who the heck am I to sit there and feel so shitty and so depressed over a man breaking my heart when I can sit here and witness children that may not have enough food to eat tonight? Like you put things in perspective. It's like, how dare I? There's bigger problems in the world. You're gonna be fine. You out here traveling. You have a roof over your head, clothes on your back, and a belly full of food. Like, get over yourself. There's bigger things to worry about, you know? And so all these types of things were content I was sharing at the time. And I think when I leaned into I like to stay leaned into my weaknesses, which I find that are truly our strengths, which we call then vulnerability. When I was really transparent about why I was so vulnerable, what got me to that vulnerable state, I recognized that those who were following me at the time was like, holy smokes, that's me. Me too. Hands up in the air. Me too. Me too. I can relate. And I think there, in answering your question, DP, is like how I think I really truly began getting traction on the social media kind of realm, because I recognized that in sharing content that didn't necessarily look so strong. Because remember, I came from like sharing, you know, what I was doing in the gym and then competing on the stage. And what was shown was like this kind of immaculate body. That I was like, hey, guess what? I'm actually not that strong because I'm mentally and emotionally and spiritually not strong. And it sucks, right? And women were like, yo, I deal with that too. It's like this idea of being a superwoman and presenting that to the world, but knowing you're really dealing with some really tough crap. Like, it's really hard for me to co-parent, you know, with my ex-husband. You know, my 10-year-old is bulimic. There's a whole host of issues that aren't related to myself, but because I was able to be vulnerable and share certain things on social media, I think I started to generate was like a really authentic crowd of women that basically said, yeah, me too, man. That's crazy. And that's where the traction actually began, in being fully transparent.
So you just said something that just was like, wow. And it just brought everything into perspective. There's a point in time in your household where there's 7 people in the house. That is a lot of people to be in the house. And, you know, like I said, it's amazing to see, you know, what you're able to do. Still being able to balance everything out, which is still extremely difficult, but it's just, you know, I have a big respect. You know, I'm one of your biggest fans. I've always been one of your biggest fans, which leads me to, I'm going to ask you this trick question. Do you remember the first time we met?
It's a good question. I literally had to think about that, but I know that you're an Atlanta boy, and I was like, I must have been maybe in Atlanta, because when I first started traveling and doing like pop-up boot camps, I went to Atlanta numerous times because they show mad love out there. So I'm thinking, I honestly couldn't think, but I was like, maybe it wasn't. Oh no. Oh snap. No, I know, but I want you to say it. That's crazy. You know,
so look.
I remember now. I remember.
This lets you know when I say, and I mean this with every ounce of love. When I say I am a true fan, I'm a true follower. I support Lita 120%. And I believe this was the first time, I could be wrong, but I believe to my knowledge, the first time you did a fitness trip with Nick and what's her name?
Deanna.
Yes. Deanna. Yeah. It was 4 of y'all. It was Nick, Deanna, and
Queenie.
Who else went? Queenie. There you go. In Jamaica. Me and Deshaun came out there and supported you guys. We met a lot of people, but that was the first time I met you.
That's crazy.
When that was what, back in 2014, maybe?
Is it really? I would have put it. Yeah, maybe. I was thinking maybe 13, 14. Yeah, that makes sense. It was a while ago. It feels like a century ago, though, doesn't it? That's crazy.
Because that's a lot of stuff has changed since then. But that was actually the first time I met you. And of course, I wasn't, you know, to the capacity that I am now in fitness. Yeah. But this was, you know, me looking up to you and seeing, you know, the stuff that you were doing, and just, you know, like I said, I'm a fan and just admired, you know, everything you've done and just watched from afar. So, you know, it's an honor to have you on this podcast, knowing that, you know, 6-7 years ago, I was at that was one of you guys' first trip?
I think the Jamaica with all the rest of the crew, I think that was the first one. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was yeah. That's crazy.
to
Yeah,
be, to see all that, be on that first trip and now actually have you on my podcast. It's just, it's amazing. So thank you again. Thank
yeah.
you
Oh, of
for
course.
getting
It's
on
my
this.
pleasure. It's my pleasure. That is awesome. It's so crazy how far we've all come, right? And the journey in which we've traveled.
And it's a journey, boy. It is a journey.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, if you guys are out there wanting to, becoming your own entrepreneur, it's extremely difficult. And I can definitely relate to, having those nights, and days where you're alone and you're just feeling like, everything's coming down or there's too much weight on your shoulders and you just don't know what to do. But you just have to push through. If it's something that you really want to do and you really believe in what it is that you have to offer, continue to push through, continue to stretch towards your goals and, be resilient in what you're doing. So I wanted to know if I was trying to see, I wonder if she remembers that.
Yeah, dang. I didn't at first, but then it clicked. And then I remember it being one hell of a great time too. It was awesome.
Yeah, we had a real good time out there.
Yeah, I think I
So
remember you all having a real good time too.
I still got pictures from that and all kinds
I'm
of
sure.
stuff.
I'm sure. Oh,
But
golly.
question: did
Yeah.
you have any athletic background? Was there anything that you were like? Did you just jump into fitness, or were you a prior athlete, or how did that go?
Yeah, no, as mentioned, I recognized when I was depressed all those years back that the only thing I could remember that actually made me feel good about myself was moving. And that sort of took me back to my athlete days. So growing up from age 5, track and field was like my thing. And, I ran competitive track back home in Sydney, Australia for many years. And it was like, track is life was kind of what I lived by. And so absolutely. So I come from a track and field background. I also in my late teens and early 20s went to play rugby as well. So the team aspect of sports was really big and new to me at the time because I went from an individual sport to a team sport. But I think that in general, I've always considered myself like an athlete because it was the foundation of so much growing up, especially as a female and identifying with sports as one of my greatest strengths growing up. I always say once an athlete, always an athlete because it's a mindset that you have. So yeah, definitely. I definitely came from a track and field and rugby background.
So coming from track and field to rugby, those are totally two different sports. One's a non-contact sport, and the other is extremely, extremely rough. So, how was the transition between the two?
The transition was pretty smooth for me, to be completely honest. I basically made this team. It was a regional team based on my speed because I was a sprinter. And so, in our sport, we call it the winger, and I just played wing position. So as long as I knew how to catch a ball and had it in my hands, it was very difficult to catch me. So the transition for me, I think, was more so just like, really trusting in a team, gaining trust from them as other team players and learning how to navigate an opposition with others versus it being very solely driven like on the track. So I would say the transition for me in sports was pretty smooth. I think the most common obstacle probably was dealing with a whole bunch of females because I was very much a tomboy and I wasn't your typical girly girl growing up. So, when you go from like a very individual sport to having to play a sport with a team of rugby girls, there's a lot of different types of personalities that you have to navigate. But outside of that, I thought it was smooth sailing for me.
So, and that is a huge transition because, like I said, it's you move from a non-contact kind of single sport where you're kind of judged off of you personally to a contact sport with a bunch of girls and a bunch of different personalities and all different kinds of emotions and stuff going on in the locker room and things like that. So it's crazy. And I didn't even know that you used to play rugby. So you got to share some type of some pictures, some photos, some videos. We
I
want to see that kind of
know.
stuff.
That's so crazy. I wish, I feel like all like my real throwback, back home, like my mom's like photo albums, you know what I mean? And that's all the way in Sydney, Australia. So maybe I need to ask mom
That's
to like whip them open and take some pictures,
that's exactly how I feel. Like everything I used to do, like back in because we're so advanced now. Everything was on like
Yeah,
digital cameras
exactly.
and VCRs. Like they don't even sell those things no more.
Exactly. Your kids will never know. You never know.
Right.
Like
They're
if you want
like,
to
what
see
is this
old
thing,
school,
Dad? Like
if you
popping
want to
in
see
an
old
8-track or something.
Exactly. Exactly. If your kids ever want to see some old school pictures of daddy, yeah, you're going to have to go back to like photo albums that may not even exist these days. So it's like, yeah, all that
Exactly.
stuff is
Like
not digital.
it is crazy. So you have you have a few different things you're working on. One of them is your fitness line. How did you
Yeah.
get started in an apparel line?
Yeah. It's funny. I don't really call it a fitness line because it's not necessarily fitness related. Not at first. At first it was like, I basically started a movement once social media became something that I was using intentionally, by
Mm-hmm.
running around the country doing these pop-up boot camps, as you know, because I've definitely come to Atlanta, seen you guys come through, use your space, all that. And I would always like encourage women specifically, by saying like really quirky kind of motivating things throughout this camp, just screaming in their faces with all these little quirky things that just made them feel good about themselves. And my demographic was very much females, women, specifically minorities that were never really, seen in the fitness space. Like, what we saw on fitness magazines was never us, right? And this idea of like,
Right.
you could be thicker or just literally a completely different shape, but it didn't mean that you weren't fast or strong or feminine or beautiful. It meant all those things. And I just think that they needed somebody to tell them. So I really prided myself on trying to be more into this women empowerment and telling them that they were beautiful regardless of whatever shape, size, that they were. And so I started putting these quirky little things on tank tops and hoodies and hats because they asked for it, not because I wanted to start an apparel line. It's because, oh my God, put that on the shirt, and this idea of like thick thighs save lives or love thyself or like fuck a
Right.
thigh gap, like, all these things. So it started off really intentional. It wasn't my plan to do it, but I did it because I wanted to wear these things. And then now in
Right.
more recent years, I recognize the community that I've built has been super organic. I have this amazing, I hate to say fan base. To me, that's like family base because there's people that have been riding
Right.
with me for years. But then I'm like, okay, I want to start creating and making apparel pieces that then accentuate our curves or make us feel confident and curvy as we work out. So in more recent times, in the past, 18 months, a year to 18 months, I've worked on, some really cool pieces that I'm really proud of, that fall under my apparel line for Thick Athletics Apparel. And so we have these really awesome contour, seamless leggings, sports bras, shorts, that come in some really cool, fun colors. And so I'm now working on a new wave of different colors and items, for the fall and winter season. So it's been fun because it kind of gives you that, adrenaline that you get as a trainer when you see a client feel like sexy and confident in their gains. Like, the apparel will absolutely make you feel the same way. So that's really, really cool for me to read and see feedback from women wearing my leggings. And especially when they say my husband loves them more than I do, because it definitely makes all the curves pop.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So we got a bunch of different people on here. I try to like to cover a lot of different aspects, but for our up and coming trainers, influencers, what 3 best pieces of advice would you give for people looking to become an influencer or in the fitness game?
That's a good question. I think first and foremost, in recognizing first that the health and fitness industry seems very overly saturated, like everyone's a trainer, it's really important to distinguish what makes you who you are. And the fastest and easiest way to do that is simply be yourself. Don't sit there and see a whole bunch of influencers and say, oh, I've got to be more like that. And I've got to do more like stuff like that and look like that. Don't do any of that stuff. Be who you are, because again, it sounds cliche, but your greatest strength is what makes you unique. So I think anyone first and foremost that is going to try to start and build a brand on social media, be yourself, 100% authentic, whatever that may be for you. So that's one key advice. The second key advice, I think, is be open to giving away your talent. And what I mean by that, when you're starting off in the game, sometimes it's really hard to shape people from what they're currently doing unless you give them a true incentive. Meaning, like, if you said, hey, once a month or once a week, you host a free workout session, whether it's a boot camp or an online session that they can tap into, give away your talent, give it away for free so you can start spreading the word and giving people true incentive to be a part of whatever you're doing. And then because you're so great at it and because you love what you do, they'll recognize that. And then when it comes time to start charging, they're more than happy to support you, you know? So I'm a big believer in giving it away for free. And that should be easy when you love what you do as well, you know, because I love what I do. So I was happy to be like, free workout, no problem. Here it is. And I found that a good strength of mine was when you do so, you start building an audience or a family or community from a very organic place because they already love you. You haven't tried to sell them anything. And when it's like, hey, I got to support myself. That's what I want to do full time. They're like, no problem. We love your movement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right?
It's funny you say. I say that I get a lot of people that they'll DM me and they'll ask that. And it's funny because during the pandemic, you know, I've been doing free classes and free workouts 5 days a week. And since March. And it's September now. But somebody DM me and they're like, hey, like, why are you doing all this stuff for free? Like, you should be charging for it. Like, how are you making any money? Like, are you okay? Like, yeah, I'm completely fine, you know, and there's a lot of people out here, and I'm glad that you said that need some help. They need the motivation. They need the inspiration. And I kind of did a little video and I was telling people, like, the stuff that you guys see me do online and these classes, this stuff is for you. Like, it's not for me. I've already done my workout. Right. I've already done my cardio for the day. I'm still giving another part of me to you guys just to keep you inspired, to keep you motivated, you know, to know that if I can do all that I'm doing and this, you can at least do this with, you know, and give you something just to look forward to and some motivation. You may not have the money. You may not be able to go anywhere. We are dealing with a pandemic right now. And even if we wasn't, it's always good to be able to give back and say, you know, I got something free going on, come out. You know, it's not, and I tell people all the time, you shouldn't always try to capitalize off of every single opportunity that you have. Right, you get so much in return if you're just willing to give away that information that, you know, because it always comes back tenfold. So I'm glad that you touched on that, especially for people that are listening to be influencers, because that's one of the questions they always ask me. Like, and they say, like, what should I do? I said, well, you offering any boot camps, any free boot camps? And they're like, nah. I said, well, you can't charge people if they for something that they don't even know what it's like. So start giving this stuff away for free, you know, get some interest in it. So, you know, when it does come a point in time where you do want to put a dollar price or a price point on it, you can now say, you know, this is what I offer, and you're giving them a little bit more than the free thing that you're doing. So I'm definitely appreciative that you touched on that as well.
For sure.
The last thing is, I know you got a lot to do, and I don't want to keep you on here too long, is what's your best advice for getting someone in the best shape of their life?
God, best, dang. In one, that's the best shape. I think, you know, that's a lot. Okay, that's a loaded question, but I think if I had to answer it, I'd say this. Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'd say this. I think that if somebody is really trying to achieve being in the best shape of their life, I think it doesn't start by walking into the gym. I think it starts with this really transparent sense of honesty to your freaking self. not to prove it to anyone else, not to be able to cross it off a list, just to say, look yourself in the mirror and say, I want this, I deserve this, and I am finally prepared to give it 100% of my time and energy. It's a commitment to yourself, because in order to get in the best shape of your life, sure, you need to commit to physical activity on a regular basis, train outside your comfort zone, eat right nutrition, like all these things that we already know. But I think the first step to achieving this successfully is to commit to yourself the goal, this period. Like if you're ready for that, I think then you're ready to actually do the work, because you never want to go and hit the field, hit the court, whatever it may be, without first understanding what it's going to cost you. And that's what's really important. So I think I'd start right there, right at square one.
And I totally agree. And my approach is similar. And I always say, I'm a man, I like to give analogies, but I always say it starts mentally. You have to really come to the decision mentally and say, I'm going to do this. And I'll give you guys just a different way to look at it, because I think it's the picture that I paint is going to be pretty clear. And I use my son for an example. And he wants to play football. So I started him in, flag football, just to get his feet wet, to see, what it's like. All right, cool. You like that, had fun. Now the next thing is the real football is contact football. So mentally, you have to be ready and tell yourself, okay, I'm either going to tackle somebody or somebody's going to tackle me. And am I prepared for that? And the other way of getting is of looking at it. I can't get it out. For looking at that is from a boxer standpoint. A lot of people want to fight. A lot of people, want to throw punches, but not everybody wants to get punched in the mouth.
Get punched, right?
Right. And it's real. If you're in a fight and you happen to get punched in the mouth, that shit hurts. So you have to mentally be prepared to go through a lot of different things. And I tell people, my biggest accomplishment isn't helping people lose weight. That was the easy thing to do. The hardest thing to do is mentally change a behavior trait that this person has had for X amount of time. And mentally is the hardest thing to do. And I do like a accountability call once a week on the program to talk to people's mental, because, it's not an easy thing to do, just to I can give anybody a meal plan, get anybody a meal plan and tell them to eat this. But if you're anything like me, I know I get tired of eating fish after day one. Like I'm totally tapped out. I'm over it, but mentally I have to say, okay, I'm going to do this for X amount of time because these are the results that I want to achieve. This is the discipline that I have to have. This is the mindset that I have to have going in. And if other people can do it, so can I. And that's the beauty of, getting to the results and the goals that you want in the fitness world, because when you really start zoning in on the things that make you who you are and really start seeing how great you are. And I always tell people, I think everybody's great. You just have to find where your niche is, what's going to make you click. And when you make that investment in yourself, and take that time for yourself, you really start getting a whole different movement, a whole different demeanor about yourself. And I say it all the time, you start realizing who the fuck you are. And sometimes it takes fitness for that to happen, or self-reflection or a mentality like that to happen, for you to really find out who you are. And when you find out who you are, you realize there's not too many things that come in your way that you can't knock down or move around. But thank you, Lita. Thank you
Amen.
for blessing
Amen.
this platform.
Yeah.
Thank you
Oh
for
my
blessing
gosh.
this platform.
Yeah, it's such my pleasure.
It's truly an honor to have you on here. Where can people find out who you are, for people who don't know who you are? Do you have any information you can give out that people can look for your product, find you on your social media? Like, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, for sure. I can be found across all social media platforms, using my name, Lita. So it's follow the Lita, my name, Lita, across Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, the whole gamut. And then, you can find out more about me straight on my website, which is just, litalewis.com. But, DP, I appreciate you, man. It's fun to chat and sort of go down memory lane as well with you. I appreciate the time
Right.
for having me on.
No, no problem. And thank you again for your time. Other than that, guys, thank you guys for your time, for listening to Fit Plug. It's your boy DP and Lita Lewis, and we are out. Peace.
Done.